Good morning, Ambassador Gaspar, fellows, Expo partners, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. A very warm welcome to the second day of the Southern African Mandela Washington Fellowship Conference with the theme, Collaborative Servant Leaders Contributing to the Integration and Development of Southern Africa. Yesterday, we engaged with panelists who set the tone for inclusive discussion, zoning in on effective and accountable leadership. 6 breakaway sessions that focused on different aspects of challenges and opportunities in Africa, ranging from gender equality, regional trade and investment, youth for good governance, the green economy, responsible enterprise, and youth empowerment. We concluded that there is a need for tailor-made practical solutions that address youth-specific needs and challenges to increase our opportunities. Reflecting on yesterday, some key things that stood out. I was looking at a quote by Mandela yesterday that I think summarizes some of the characteristics we need as leaders. Honesty, sincerity, simplicity, humility, generosity, absence of vanity, and readiness to serve. The second thing that I picked up was understanding how having a holistic perspective of what Southern Africa is, understanding what our neighbors are all about, and how we can plug in with our initiatives to contribute to the development of Southern Africa. The last and most important thing is that we need to understand the we in team. There's one quote that also stood out for me. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, we go together. And we're each other's best resource. As we continue into the second day, it's important for us to keep the theme that insights that we got from yesterday, from the sessions, and the continuous interactions we'll be having with each other. We need to start thinking about fortunate enough to have an expo and discussion around the issues around migration. We also need to start strategizing and reflecting on how our work will contribute to the economic and sustainable development of the region and the human rights that currently are challenging our region at the moment. I'll now have the opportunity of introducing our next speaker. He's someone with a wealth of experience. He was Director for the African Affairs at the National Security Council. He's worked at the Department of State as the Special Assistant to the Deputy Secretary of State and has worked in international development work in various capacities. He is currently the Senior Coordinator for the President's Young African Leaders Initiative at USAID. Please can you help me welcome Chris Runyon.
Good morning, everybody. So it is absolutely fabulous to see so many 2014 fellows again. I met so many of you in Washington, but not everyone. So I do hope that during the breakfast tomorrow, during lunch, during dinner, after time, and perhaps if there's another one of these ventures out in Johannesburg until 4 a.m., we'll have a chance to talk. Yeah, I heard about that. That's right. So you've come from all over Southern Africa, and we know this comes at a price in your time. You are so busy running organizations, running companies, serving your communities. So thank you all for coming and for contributing today and this week. I've never been so happy. I don't know about the ambassador, but I've never been so happy to spend a week at a hotel at an airport before in my life. I can't think of another time that I've enjoyed this, being so close to an airport, but this is absolutely wonderful, and I'm glad everything has worked out so well. And of course, that's all because you guys are here. So on behalf of USAID and more broadly on behalf of the interagency YALI team in Washington and here in Mandela for Southern Africa, USAID is extremely excited to provide you with the support that you've received over the last 9 months since your return to Africa, and we can't wait to start working with the 2015 fellows, which should be a lot of fun. I'm sure there won't be any rivalries about which year or cohort of fellows is better, right? No, there won't be any of that, I'm sure, yeah. Sort of like there were no rivalries between US institutes where the universities where you all went, right? No, none of that. I just came from West Africa, the regional conference, and I think there are some fellows who are getting tattoos and things of their US universities. So those relationships are clearly well cemented. So since your return, you've done amazing things, both as individuals and perhaps more importantly, together, as Irene, I think, has nicely noted with that quote. Just a couple of shout outs now, but I heard about Takunda Chingonzo from Zimbabwe's invitation to speak at the Global Philanthropy Forum in Washington recently, sitting alongside the presidents of the Ford Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation, the director of the White House Office of Science and Technology, and other prominents to talk about the disruptive power, perhaps productive power of the internet. Zimbabwe, that's right. And also a quick shout out after talking with Lulu Hangala from Zambia. Yeah, where's Lulu? I know she's around here. But telling me on Saturday evening at our welcome reception about the oversubscribed event that she recently did in Lusaka on young women's entrepreneurship and bringing a group of young women together. And so this is pretty, I think it's pretty amazing. But they were looking at the social media in Zambia at the time, and she said, well, this event took place on Saturday, and on Saturday it's all about soccer, right? So everybody's watching the soccer matches, and of course what's going on in the Premier League right now, I'm sure there were a lot of people watching soccer. Her event was trending above soccer. So yesterday was really terrific, and it's clear you are switched on, engaged, listening, talking, and seizing this moment. Please make the most of the conference time that we've got left together and draw on each other's experience and expertise of the external guests that we've got here as well in attendance to fully engage in the conference program and to further commit yourself to the leadership goals that you have in your civic engagement. But first, we have some special thanks to give. I'd like to ask the members of the Regional Advisory Board to please come up into the front of the room. Do we have some RAB members here? So Christopher, our board chair, L'Espoir from Seychelles, Irene Jakombo from Zimbabwe, the vice chair, Charlene Bangwe from Zambia, the secretary, Kabo Moseki from Botswana, Patrina Auna from Namibia, Ulricia Rabafitiavana. The Madagascar ones are always the best. Russell Mulamula from South Africa, Zuhir Panchu from Mauritius, and then unfortunately, I'm sure folks know, but we have two RAB members who are unable to join us this week, Lindiwe Dlamini from Swaziland and Daniel Dunga from Malawi. So thank you, board. So the Regional Advisory Board has been brilliant and has worked so hard to bring you a great event here in Johannesburg. The board serves as a vital bridge between us and our USAID team. Interests and priorities of the fellows in Southern Africa, as evidenced by this conference program agenda. So thank you, board. I would also like to thank the partners who have come to help join the Partner Expo. So we ended up with more partners than we could plan for in this room, so now we've got extra space over there. So please mingle during the expo in both rooms to talk to the many partners that we have here today. I would also like to thank the handful of volunteer mentors. I believe we have a handful of mentors and coaches who are here today. So I just want to make sure we acknowledge them. They have given a lot of their time, effort, and expertise in order to help you as fellows. So please, a round of applause for those mentors and coaches. And sorry, I'm going to keep making you clap a little bit. But can we also have a round of applause for the young volunteer leaders here who have given a lot of their time and effort to help execute this event? Yeah. So don't just thank them, but also please engage with some of them. I believe almost all are from South Africa, but you may want to keep in touch with them. And of course, they're coming up quick as well, so you may want to keep their contact information since soon they'll be your competition. So I want to mention also that we have Kofi Obenga Sedyu. Oh, where are you, Kofi? Okay, Kofi is here from State Department. Kofi's with the Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. He has to leave soon after his remarks tomorrow. So please, if you have an opportunity, talk with Kofi. Kofi has information to share, some of which he'll be able to do tomorrow briefly, but about changes to the institutes and the experience in the United States. So Kofi is with ECA, Educational and Cultural Affairs, that runs the program in the United States for fellows. So for all of those who worked hard to provide feedback on the program, which resulted in changes to the program, Kofi can tell you more about that. So please introduce yourself to him. Also, Paul Swider. Paul is back here with the Yali Network in the far back corner. Manning the Yali Network booth. But Paul, I think if you still have some tentative plans to do an event here in South Africa this week, probably Wednesday or Thursday, if we have any fellows who are staying behind on Thursday, or if we have some South African fellows who are resident here in Joburg, Pretoria, or in the area around, please talk with Paul, because he would love to have some fellows get together and have a discussion about your experiences. So please talk with Paul if you can. So I would now like to introduce Ambassador Patrick Gaspard, the U.S. Ambassador to South Africa. He has served in a broad array of important leadership positions, from local government to national policy at the White House. And of course, we had a chance to hear from him last night at the wonderful event that we had at the Mandela Center. That was just tremendous. So Ambassador, thank you so much for joining us and being such a champion of the YALI program, sir.
Thank you, Chris. Good morning. I really enjoyed last night. You all were, of course, as brilliant as advertised, and many of you, particularly those of you who are from South Africa, have become real friends of mine. I spent time with you last year during your training and your launch. I had the great privilege to really get to know many more of you from throughout sub-Saharan Africa last year in Washington, D.C., after your 6 weeks at the finest universities in the States, where we all got together at the Smithsonian Institute, and then at that remarkable town hall summit that you had an opportunity to engage with my president, President Barack Obama. So I know all that you are capable of. I know where you've come from and have an inkling of where you're going to take not only yourselves, but this continent and this globe over the next 5 or 6 decades, and I could not be more thrilled, I could not be more inspired. I want to not only welcome you all to this first ever Young African Leadership Initiative Mandela Washington Fellowship Conference for Southern Africa. What a mouthful that is. But I also want to thank our private sector partners, thank IREX for all the incredible work that they've done on this project. And I want to welcome and thank the former president of the Seychelles, President James Manchin, and his elegant and accomplished wife for joining us here today and lending their considerable credibility to these proceedings as well. Now, those of you who've spent some time with me know that I am loath to speak from prepared remarks, but because there is so much that we have to cover, and because my communications director is here, and so is the press, and he wants to make sure I get this all right, I'm going to do just that. But know that as I do that, I speak from the heart and with a tremendous amount of enthusiasm for what you do. I think that my staff is so tired of me talking about YALI, because I think this is the single coolest thing happening on the planet. I want to tell you that we are all just tremendously animated and extra motivated by this. So we are, of course, happy to give you this opportunity to connect with your peers, other leaders, and experts, and to listen to each other's stories of successes, and most importantly, to also listen to the stories of failures as well, and to discover what's worked well in order to collectively be able to move forward. This is also an opportunity to engage with one another and each other, to work together to achieve the vision that President Obama had for the YALI program, a vision that rests on the belief that young African leaders can and definitely will create value and positive change through their talents, creativity, and insights, not just for themselves, but for their own communities and, I dare say, for the rest of the globe. And finally, this conference is an opportunity to demonstrate your ability to inspire others with your dedication and with your enthusiasm, for you to exemplify in your own unique ways the passion and excitement that YALI Mandela Fellows have for the future. You guys are aggressively focused on the future as you ought to be, but I want to always remind you that if the future is going to actually concretize and take shape, we get there through real intricate planning. When I have occasion to speak to folks who come from communities of struggle, like the ones that I came out of, I always say that the difference sometimes between those of us who struggle and those who are successful is that people who struggle have dreams. People who are successful have goals. So I know that the folks here are holding fast to your goals, looking towards the future, but really building up that infrastructure in the present. In designing your own agenda for this conference, you've decided to address relevant and timely issues such as equality, youth unemployment, and regional integration. These are not easy subjects to tackle, but leaders are people who face up to the challenges that prevent others from achieving what they know their communities need. You are those leaders. You know your role, you know your task. Last August, I was, as I mentioned, privileged to attend President Obama's African Leaders Summit in Washington, D.C. It was an unprecedented gathering in D.C. of leaders, almost 50 leaders from throughout sub-Saharan Africa. I saw all you there the week before, and I have to say that while it was exciting to see all of these heads of state in Washington, D.C., your gathering was tremendously more inspiring, more kinetic, and more forward-looking than the other one. So almost 50 heads of state engaged with President Obama and some of America's most dynamic government and business leaders. The summit was successful because it represented a new model of partnership between America and Africa, a partnership that focuses on African capacity to solve African problems and on the continent's own capacity to grow. It also, I'm excited to say, generated commitments of over $30 billion from the U.S. private sector. We're talking about not aid, but new trade and investment from American companies that will help spur African development and support tens of thousands of new jobs. We created several U.S. government-wide initiatives to make this happen. Programs such as Doing Business in Africa, the Power Africa Initiative, and the African Private Capital Group initiatives. And I'm, you know, I'm an organizer, and so as an organizer, I'm intensely greedy. I always want to put everything under my portfolio, and I'm thrilled that these initiatives are housed here in South Africa, in our mission. And we're already seeing the impact that these are having to help drive innovation throughout the continent. For example, a USAID loan guarantee enabled Cadiz Asset Management to raise up to $150 million in private capital from pension funds and larger domestic and international institutional investors to lend small and medium-sized entrepreneurs throughout the continent. USAID also has a $28 million guarantee agreement with Absa Bank here in South Africa to mitigate risk to lending to small and medium-sized enterprises that do not meet the bank's normal lending criteria. And there is a similar $15 million program with Barclays Bank in Botswana helping to drive innovation in the health sector. On small and medium sized businesses, let's all acknowledge that the world is changing in a very, very short period of time. Not that long ago, I saw a survey of 400,000 small businesses that exist in these regions, in this region. And according to that survey, it's clear that of those 400,000 small entrepreneurial businesses, a full 250,000 of them would not exist if not for the new increased access to broadband in sub-Saharan Africa. So things are changing quickly. Institutions, banks have to have new models of investment and loans, and you all are going to be the transformative change leading 2,800 African small and medium-sized enterprises to develop the business and financial systems needed to access that financing. Through these initiatives and others like them, we're helping a dynamic Africa which can develop its own solutions to its own considerable challenges, and you are all at the tipping point of the spear. All of you have an inspirational story to tell, and many of you have already made great strides towards your goals in the short 10 months since the time I last saw you in Washington, D.C. Your achievements remind us of the incredible raw talent that exists on this continent. I constantly say, as I did to you all last night, that if we just resource that talent and get out of the way, we know that you're going to out-innovate and out-compete anyone else on the planet. I'm sure you all noted with some excitement the recent announcement that President Obama is returning to the continent very, very soon. He's going to the land of his ancestors in Kenya in July to attend the 2015 Global Entrepreneurship Summit. You'll recall that he announced at your summit last year that the next GES would be in sub-Saharan Africa, and he is making good on that commitment. This typifies the importance that the U.S. government places on entrepreneurship and the value that we place on young entrepreneurs in particular. We recognize that entrepreneurs and small business owners are the backbone of free, open markets and economies, and we know that helping African and American businesses work together will help drive that future. Let's be clear here. I want to just harken back to something that President Obama said when he was in South Africa at some point last year. He held a town hall meeting in Cape Town, and during that town hall afterwards, one of the reporters in the room asked President Obama about the competition that we apparently are in with China on the continent, and asked about our interest here. And President Obama said very clearly that he thought it was well and good that China was invested here. He didn't see it as competition, as a zero-sum game, that we all needed to be working together. And he took it a step further. He said, let's be clear. We are no longer at a point where we're just talking about what the U.S. is doing in order to help Africa. This is a two-way traffic. Things that are happening here, innovations that are happening here on the continent are going to have tremendous value on the other side of the Atlantic, in Peoria, Illinois, in Columbus, Ohio, in New York City, in Miami, Florida. Your innovations here are going to spur growth and job development back home in the States. So in essence, what we're doing here with Yali is not just about something that we see as beneficial to the continent, but it's driving our own long-term self-interest as well, and that's what partnership should actually be like. The U.S. is committed to our partnerships in Africa, working with your governments and your private sectors to drive this innovation, to drive this partnership. It inspires me knowing that some of America's best performing corporations have been involved in this initiative from the ground up. There are 8 staff from PricewaterhouseCoopers mentoring fellows from all 3 regions across the continent. This past year, Oracle, which is one of my very favorite companies because they've adopted this remarkable school outside of Tembisa Township that they helped build from the ground up, and they stayed invested in it. I'm an Oracle groupie. This past year, Oracle hosted networking events with fellows in Nigeria and Kenya, and Procter & Gamble recently hosted a very impressive mentoring event for fellows here in South Africa. The company's CEO himself hosted a group session with a focus on how to exemplify leadership principles in business. I'm proud to have such a robust American corporate footprint and presence in developing the world's future leaders. I said the world's future leaders because you all are not stopping at your borders, and you're certainly not stopping at this continent. These companies have given much support to this initiative, but I know that in turn, they appreciate that their institutions have much to gain from your brilliant minds and from your presence. Starting in 2016, President Obama intends to double the number of Mandela Washington Fellows traveling to the U.S. each year to 1,000. And though we realize that this barely scratches the surface of all the talent and the capacity that exists here, we think it is a great first step. Last year, when we received nearly 50,000 applications continent-wide and could only select 500 of you, we knew that we had to figure out some way to capacitate and work with the other 49,500 would-be aspirants to the program who could not go to Washington, D.C. And we constantly went around and talked to our partners in government, in business, in civil society to come up with some construct, some vehicle to house all of that inspirational energy. We asked the question everywhere. The answer that we came up with is this. The product of those discussions are the regional leadership platforms that we're standing up in 3 different parts of the continent. Microsoft has been a fantastic partner with us, with Yali, in sharing President Obama's vision from the very beginning. Microsoft is hosting up to 100 Yali Fellows this year in professional internships across the continent, and they're also partnering with us on standing up these regional infrastructures and these platforms. Through their For Africa initiative, Microsoft's goal is to empower every African that has a great idea for a business or an application, and to help turn that idea into a reality, in turn helping communities, countries, and the continent. We're grateful for their contribution of infrastructure and hardware, for technology hubs, training to technology entrepreneurs, and of course, the immense efforts of numerous staff. Thank you to them and to all of our private sector partners. I'm going to ask you to give all of them a round of applause. So these unique centers will expand access to leadership development opportunities to thousands of more young people across the continent, leveraging your experiences and allowing you all and others to give back to your communities and influence that next vital generation. Here in South Africa, we're proud to host one of these centers, which will serve as the backbone of that work. With a robust online component as well, the center will provide fellows with a great opportunity to continue their professional development long after they've returned home. I want to express my gratitude to in-country partners as well, like UNISA, the University of Pretoria, the Innovation Hub, and Life Company Unlimited, who are currently working to help concretize all of this. The spark in innovation and creativity in the eyes of all of you fills me with a great sense of our possibilities. When I'm with outstanding young people, as I was last night and as I was a few nights ago, when I saw the next cohort that's coming up to compete actively with you all, I realized that those who are cynical about the progress that's been made in the continent are dead wrong, and you all are going to be able to sustain that change, that growth, and that development. It's impossible not to give a couple of shout-outs to some of the incredible talent in here, like Irene. Irene's just incredible. Last night, before the reception, I had a conversation with her and another one of your colleagues, and I made the mistake of asking her if President Obama was here, what suggestions she would make about changing the program. Without missing a beat, she had a 10-point program for me that I had to go and deliver to the president when I next see him. Just a remarkable leader from Zim, who spoke before and recently undertook an exciting cross-border partnership to facilitate social entrepreneurship, boot camps with other Mandela Washington Fellowships. Just an incredibly important initiative. And another example of the leadership in this room comes from Botswana, where fellows joined together to form a partnership with the Ministry of Education to implement the Alumni Engagement Project. They will mentor and train up to 80 young teachers in leadership so that these teachers are better equipped to prepare and inspire the next generation of leaders in their country. Here in South Africa, Mabato Mokiti has applied what she learned during her time in the U.S. to her business, Mathemaniacs. I want to congratulate her on receiving a contract from the Industrial Development Corporation designing corporate social investment programs for rural schools in KwaZulu-Natal and Limpopo, impacting 6 schools and more than 1,000 learners. Incredible program. Finally, I have to take time to really shout out one of my very favorite programs, one that I'm constantly going back to visit. I hope that the founder of this program doesn't mind how much I impose on him. Whenever we have visitors from out of town and we want to give them an example of real, organic, grassroots youth leadership, we go down to the Cape, and we go and we visit our labs. Our labs is making a real difference in working with young people who are dropouts from school, who have had real challenging backgrounds, giving them the experience that they need in the new IT environment, giving them deep sense of digital platforms and social media to link them to tools to help solve the problems that they have in their communities, to transfer skills, and most importantly, to grow job opportunities in that community. That program has been so successful, it's now been replicated in 22 other countries. Started with a little bit of US aid funding, and now this Yali alum is burning up the planet. So really, really remarkable examples in this room. So as we speak, 40 new young Yali cohorts from South Africa are taking off right now. I hope that you all will work closely with them and the new Yalis from all of your countries to continue to give them your tremendous example. And as I close, I just want to close on a personal note, if I could. It feels to me that it was not that long ago that I was in your situation, where 25 years ago, actually 30 years ago, when I was a young activist in the United States, showing just a little bit of organizing potential, some political potential, and I had others take me under their wing. I came from a immigrant family from IET that was incredibly poor and struggling. I was actually born here on the continent in the DRC, and I remember being in your seats and feeling a tremendous amount of duty, responsibility, obligation, but also pressure and a fear of failure. A lot of folks look at you and they see how incredible you are, and they talk about how incredible you are, but they don't realize that so many of you are carrying the burden of having to take care of whole families, whole communities. Your success and your failure is not just your success and your failure, but there are 200 other people who are intricately dependent on that. And sometimes we walk around and we wear a mask. I think it's important that when you're here in this space, that you treat it as a safe space. You remove that mask and speak honestly to one another about that burden of leadership, about the challenges that you have. Others will draw inspiration not from only your accomplishments, but how difficult it is for you as well, and how you succeed through that. What is it that Frantz Fanon wrote so many decades ago, when Fanon said that each generation is obligated to face its destiny and to fulfill it or betray it? I know that you will not betray yours. You will fulfill yours. You will fulfill it, though, by being true to yourselves, by being modest in this space, and treating it as the true place for risk, challenge, failure that will lead to ultimate success, not only for you, but for this remarkable continent, which will be the light of the world in this 21st century. So thank you, my friends.